So today I'd like to talk about the body, and I'd like to talk about health. And in particular, I'd like to talk about what we think of when we think of holistic health. And most of us believe that we understand, that we already know what this is. We think of mind, body, spirit as the formula for holistic health, and that's the popular construction. But I'd like to show you that there's more to it than that. And this has some powerful implications of how we think about activism. So, we start with the word itself. The word health, Germanic origin related to the word whole. And that's what we think of. The state of being free from injury, free from illness, whole, complete, and especially well-rounded. Now, native and indigenous people have understood this for a very long time. And this is a typical example. Black elk talking about how everything in nature tries to form a circle. And this is why in native and indigenous cultures, the circle is such a powerful image for everything, including health. There's the circle in the Dreamcatcher. And of course, it's all over the Eastern tradition. The circles, the mandalas, these are all images of wholeness. And even in the African social philosophy called Ubuntu, there's an emphasis on the circle of people. That's another holistic perspective. So we talked about mind, body, spirit as being the holistic formula in the modern world. But if you look at native cultures, it's actually a six-part system. Mind, body, spirit, land or habitat, tribe, people, and ancestry, which is to say our history, the history of our people. And this shows up everywhere, this six-part model. You might call it primal holism. And this takes on a lot of the characteristics that are left out by the standard mind, body, spirit formula. Because now we have to start talking about habitat. We have to start talking about society and culture. And we have to start talking about our ancestry, where we came from, what is the history of our predicament. Here's the indigenous worldview, all about interdependence, which is another way to look at holism. All the parts are related. There's a kinship model here, continuity and permeability from one life form to another. The skin is not a boundary. There is connection that is assumed to exist. And even in the Greek tradition, here we have Hippocrates. He was actually kind of a native or indigenous thinker. And he was constantly looking for forces and processes, systems that were external to the body that would bear upon the body's health. And that held sway for a very long time, until we get to this guy. We get to René Descartes. And this idea of mind-body dualism. The mind is separate from the body. The mind is superior to the body. The body is simply a locomotor device for the head and can be safely ignored. The mind is where the action is. Now, Descartes gave us a philosophy that's central to modern science. But in the process, he created a lot of destruction. And from a native point of view, Descartes' philosophy of dualism might even be considered a form of violence against the human experience. So this is, you might even call this the breaking of the world. This is when things really started to go astray for people. And this is when we started to look at the body as an object and remove ourselves from human experience to take an outsider point of view to our own bodies, objectify the body, objectify all the parts of the body, And here's a classic example of that process called reductionism. And in this example here, we take a muscle and we dissect it out of the body, out of the living body, and we start looking for the component parts. And you can see here that you dissect the muscle and you can find fibers within the muscle, and then you can dissect those fibers still further, and then you can find component parts of the component parts and take it all the way down to the molecular level. And supposedly that enhances our understanding of how muscles work. Now, you might take issue with that. But at any rate, our view of medicine and the body changed radically in the 20th century. Antibiotics, anesthesia, antiseptics, analgesics, all these A words, these miracle substances that could be injected or consumed, made these dramatic changes to the body and cured some really deadly diseases. And we were right to be impressed by this. And then later in the 20th century, of course, the antidepressants, the psychotropic medications, seeming to change our experience and even our personalities. So this ushered in this whole new wave of biomedical orientation toward the body. And this is what we have today. And you might well say that modern medicine is a wheel with one spoke. And we're all in on that one spoke, aren't we? We measure, we apply technology, all from this point of view, all from this perspective. But you can see here that if that one spoke is off by even a minute amount, or if it's out of balance in some way, the wheel will not run true. That's why wheels are normally constructed with many spokes. So now, recognizing the problem with the biomedical approach, we have people like George Engel in the 1970s writing this famous paper, The Need for a New Medical Model. And as George Engel put it, we need a biopsychosocial orientation. In other words, bio is not enough. You need to look at the psychology of the individual and the social context that that person lives in. That would be considered more holistic. And now, today, if you look on the internet, you find all kinds of holistic perspectives, all formed in this same shape, this circle, this wheel with different spokes in it. And the details here don't matter so much. People do this in different ways, but still striving for that holistic perspective. So we have a two-spoke wheel of diet and exercise. That's a popular one. Or you can have a four-spoke wheel, diet and exercise plus natural light plus stress reduction. That would be a good, solid four-spoke wheel. Here's the 4-H Society of America. Health, head, hands, heart. That goes to a well-rounded person. And mind, body, spirit. Now again, this seems holistic, but in the context of modern culture, it's really kind of not, because we have a very individualistic culture, what David Brooks of the New York Times called the big me, and there's a lot of narcissism in our culture as well. So now if you look at mind, body, spirit, whose mind, body, spirit are we talking about? We're talking about the individual. It's your mind, body, spirit, or my mind, body, spirit. Where's the rest of the world? Where is society? Where is culture? Where is habitat? All these things are missing. And in the extreme, this mind, body, spirit orientation can even drive our narcissism even further. So this is something we have to be careful about. Here's another holistic model, the veterinarian perspective that we call One Health. And what we have now are a lot of, I suppose, radical veterinarians talking about the interdependence, the interconnection of human health, animal health, and the health of habitat. That's the One Health orientation, and it's a great model. And of course, the modern ecological perspective, where all plants, all animals are considered interdependent. This new understanding is simply a reflection of the old understanding of native and indigenous people. Here's a novelist talking about his holistic perspective. I am I plus my surroundings. If I do not preserve the latter, I do not preserve myself. So again, this continuity between the body and the outside world. Here's another holistic model, one that I've put together. You've got the body surrounded by 3 circles of life support: habitat, tribe, people, community, and the story, the narrative that's embedded in the culture around you. All of these are life support systems. This is a holistic model. And sad to say, we have dysfunctional relationships at all of these levels now, don't we? Now, little background. What about the body itself? It appears in our felt experience or by casual observation that the body is simply one thing. It's whatever is enclosed by our skin, that's the body, and it looks pretty complete, doesn't it, on first examination? But if you look at the history of the human body, if you look at evolution, you're going to see something completely different. You are going to see a patchwork, what is sometimes called a kludge. Because over these vast expanses of time, we get one system grafted onto another system, they patch together, they kind of work, then natural selection comes along and removes the ones that don't work so well, and then by the time you get to the modern world, you have these animals, humans, that are pieced together in a kludge. And the kludge is not perfect, but it works most of the time. And so the challenge for healthcare professionals is to integrate the various systems of the body to get them working together. Here's an example of the kludge, the depth of the kludge in the human body. Within every cell, you have mitochondria, the little energy powerhouses of the cell. Those have DNA from other organisms. Yeah, this is a symbiotic relationship in every cell in your body. So we are, you might say, a collaboration of different organisms. Isn't that something? Even the brain is a kludge. We have this ancient brain, this amphibian brain. And on top of that, the paleo-mammalian brain, the rat brain. And on top of that, we have the what you might call the chimp brain, the neo-mammalian brain. And these layers don't always work together so well. The challenge is to integrate. So the mind, the body, all of these things are a kludge. And the idea is to get them working together. Now here's a Buddhist perspective on the same idea. Working with the metaphor of the wheel and the spokes of the wheel. Tighten the spokes in the right way. That's the key to all of this. And we know how this works. We know how to disintegrate the body, disintegrate the kludge. Artificial light does it. Trauma does it. Stress that doesn't have any meaning attached to it. That's disintegrating. Mixed messages in the modern world. Autonomic confusion. Communication between people that's asynchronous. In other words, you get electronic communication that just comes and goes and comes and goes. That's disintegrating too. And then incoherent narratives that we try to live by. All of these things tend to warp the wheel. And we know how to do integration, don't we? Physical movement, what some people call exercise. That is highly integrating because you're calling on all systems in the organism to work together. Natural light, sleep, meditation, all of these things have an integrating effect. And I'm going to suggest that activism also has an integrating effect on the organism, because like exercise, like demanding physical movement, you are calling upon the body to integrate and to produce intelligent, effective action as a whole organism. So activism. Activism needs to be part of a holistic orientation. Here's Greta Thunberg. Here's the 1968 Olympics. Here's an action taken to block a coal train in the Pacific Northwest. And the details may not matter so much. What is important is the exposure, is the effort, is the stepping up on behalf of something larger. That effort has an integrating effect. Just stop oil. Taking a risk on behalf of the future. This also has an integrating effect. Now you might say, well, that sure looks stressful to me. And of course it is. But it's stress with meaning. Here's a protest in northeastern Nevada, a strip mine. This action here, this is health promoting. Honor the earth. I am the land is me. And finally, here's Richard Horton, the editor of The Lancet, premier medical journal. Health professionals have a duty and an obligation to engage in nonviolent social protest to address the climate emergency. To put it another way, civil disobedience is a legitimate healthcare practice and must be supported. Absolutely. So now look at the holistic model again. It's not just mind, body, spirit. We add in land, tribe, and ancestry, and then we add engagement, or what you might call activism. That's a 7-part model. 7 spokes on the wheel. You can add more spokes if you want, but those are the essential elements. And that's my presentation. Thank you very much.